Sincerely Sarita, right now on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD, independent Black media.
On nights like this I ride, turn the music up to keep from crying, wait till that sunshine. Please don't let the darkness keep me low halfway to the home base, yeah. Like a field trip, whoa, it's a real trip. And over your head, it's a guilt trip, yeah. To the south side, wow, it's a real trip. It's not a quick trip. It stays with ya. Love taxes, it's a real trip. On nights like this I ride, turn the music up to keep from crying, wait till the sunshine. Please don't let the darkness keep me low halfway to the home base, yeah. Like a field trip, whoa, it's a real trip. I'm asking who can save me? You can't, baby. You can't, baby. Who can save me? Know that you can't, baby.
Hello, loves. You are tuned in to WURD Radio. This is Safe Space, and I'm your host, Sincerely Sarita. Today is Monday, April 12th, 2021, a perfect day to turn our intentions into action through conversation. Shout out to all the folks who are ready to do just that. Those of you tuned in on 96.1 FM and 900 AM, streaming WURD TV on wordradio.com, Facebook Live, YouTube, Twitch, all the good stuff that we have popping. And of course, everyone who's listening in crystal clear on the free WURD app, which is available in the Apple app and Google Play Store. So if you haven't already, please download that, okay? And if you are tuned in over on WURD TV via Facebook Live, tap the share button, start a watch party. Y'all know we're not just here to save space. We are totally okay with taking up and owning some too, especially in these internet streets, okay? And shout out to our girl, Kayla J, holding down the phone lines, the board, and everything in between. Kayla J, happy Monday, love. How are you? How was your weekend? Catch us up, all that good stuff.
Listen, my weekend
Oh, Lord.
took a turn, man. Friday, I come home, I'm getting ready for the show, Kayla J's Gospel Hour. I get a text from my doctor talking about you didn't schedule your COVID vaccination shot yet. That was purposely, ma'am. And she talking about, you didn't schedule. So I was like, okay. And I went and got a COVID shot, my first dose, on Sunday. So that was my weekend preparing for that, because your girl was just crying the whole way through. I got there, I told the lady, don't tell me when you're going to do it, just do it before I change my mind and walk out of here, because I don't like needles. So I did that, and then now my shoulder hurt. I feel like I've been lifting 1,000-pound weights for 3 days.
So how was it, though? I mean, like, the actual experience in itself.
It was quick.
Okay, it was quick. Like, you know, you got to give us.
I'm not going to say it was painless for the fact that it's a needle, but she tried to make it as painless as possible for me. She was trying to talk to me. She squeezed my little fat on my arm and was like, you're not going to feel anything. And I was like, yes, I will, lady. Don't lie to me. And she's like, I'm just going to do this now. Then I said, please stop giving me instructions of what you're going to do. I don't need a play-by-play, because I'm going to cry if you give me a play-by-play.
Okay. So you didn't want the play-by-play. It's like, look, just do what you're going to do and
get me out of here.
Okay.
But it, you know, immediately after side effects for me, your girl was tired. I was trying to hold on, but I was tired. I felt a little burn in the back of my throat.
Okay.
And now my shoulder hurts. Like, and my shoulder hurt last night too. My arm hurt, and it's a little swollen today. Make me look like I got a flannel shirt on, look like the brawny man out here.
Little husky.
Little husky
in the streets. She's strong, y'all. That's all. When you see her, if you see her, just say, "You strong, girl. You strong. You got it. You got it." Shout out. Shout out to all the folks out there who, not only have taken that step, but who have been sharing what the experience has been like. I think if the more that we all have insight into, whether it's your personal experience, going to go get the vaccination, what that process has looked like for you, like all of those different steps, it just helps to enlighten us all a little bit more about whatever decision that we may want to make. So shout out to y'all. Salute to y'all who have done that thus far. I know quite a few hosts here have done that. And Kayla J, I mean, it sounds like you were able to at least, return back to your weekend, maybe rest a little bit more, a little swollen shoulder or whatever else the case may be, but you have your first shot done. And so now, how long before your second one? Did they give you a date yet?
Yeah,
or
I
is
go
it that
back in 3 weeks, the first Sunday in May. So I got it on second Sunday yesterday. I go back in 3 weeks, the first Sunday in May, to get my second dose. And apparently that's the doozy one. So I'm ready to lay down and not try to do anything. This wasn't. I'm going to be honest, folks. It wasn't too bad. I urge all of you to go out there and get your vaccination. As much as a punk as I was, and I was waiting for them to make a pill, Sarita. I said somebody's going to make a pill, and I'm going to be able to swallow that and keep trucking about my life. Because that's just how much I hate needles. Like, anytime the doctor says you need a needle, I say, is there a pill option? Because
just something other than, yeah.
But no, it really wasn't that bad. I got mine down at the convention center through my primary care physician. So that's a way a lot of folks can go too, is do their primary care physician. I have pre-existing conditions. I'm asthmatic. That's why when I talk sometimes it sounds like I'm breathy. It's not just because I'm fat. It's just because I'm asthmatic.
First of all, we do curvy around here. Pleasantly.
I know some of it's because I'm pleasantly plump, and some of it's because I'm asthmatic. But in all seriousness, no. I have serious asthma and serious allergies that affects my breathing. So my sister had actually got hers about a week or two ago, and my doctor thought I was coming in with my sister because we usually do vaccinations and stuff together, and I was just like, nope, curved her.
You curved the crap out of her.
I curved it. And they was calling my house, and I was like, and then they hit me with a text with a link talking about this is your scheduled appointment. I was like,
oh, they just let you know that you're not going to do this. We got it done. We got it done. Yeah, no, listen, if for anyone who may not know at this point, vaccine providers across the state, across Pennsylvania, have been letting the Department of Health are telling them that, they're having trouble filling appointments. And I don't know if it's because everybody out here is like Kayla J, we, ducking and dodging or what. It could be the case because it's a lot.
I was bobbing and weaving.
It's a lot, right? They said that this is part of a trend that led the state to open eligibility to everyone 16 and older starting, I believe, tomorrow, which is 6 days earlier than previously scheduled. So if you did not know, everyone who is 16 years and older starting tomorrow are eligible to receive the vaccination. The state has required providers to use 80% of their first doses within a week of delivery. And some reported that they've just been having trouble meeting that benchmark in recent days. So for anyone who's been interested or who didn't know maybe that you're eligible, you are starting tomorrow, 16 and older. And so, they've now set up quite a few different ways for folks to be able to schedule your appointment or to find out where you can get it. I think the best place to start is with your primary care physician. But you, of course, know that you can always stay tuned right here to WURD, and we'll be sure to provide that information. But Pennsylvania officials have set a goal of getting 80%, y'all, of the population vaccinated. So to reach that goal, they need to know, they have to be realistic about this hesitancy of getting the vaccination. And so in the coming weeks, limited supply will kind of cease to be the biggest concern. This is what officials are saying, and they'll have to do more convincing, quote unquote, convincing of people who are unsure about the vaccine safety and efficacy. So I would love to hear from you all, and let me know, like, how are you feeling about either getting the vaccine? Have you already got it? Do you have any hesitancy? Does anyone else in your family, right? Is that a reality that you've either heard, seen, felt, experienced for yourself? Let us know. 215-634-8065. Again, 215-634-8065. You can also call in toll free, 866-361-0900. Again, 866-361-0900. We're taking a quick break, but when we come back on the other side, we're going to keep this thing rolling. Y'all know it's Money Monday, it's Motivation Monday. So we have Joanna Jane, who's going to join us at 8 p.m. to continue, our chat around Financial Literacy Month, which April is, and kind of doing a freestyle here. Like, if you have questions just in general about finances, budgeting, investing, etc., real estate, that you want to make sure you get answered, make sure you're ready to call in at 8 with those questions. But until then, we'll be chatting it up right here. I'll let you know a little bit of what's buzzing in these streets, what happened over the weekend, all that good stuff at 7:30. So make sure you stay tuned to Safe Space on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM, 900 AM. I'm your host, sincerely, Sarita, and we'll be back after these messages.
Hi, this is Councilmember Derek Green with new information about COVID vaccines. Soon, all Philadelphians over the age of 16 will be eligible for vaccination. However, you must be registered with the city to get vaccinated. Register today at phila.gov and fill out the vaccine interest form, or email covid@phila.gov. If you can't complete the form, call 311 to get registered. Your information is confidential. We all want a healthier, better Philadelphia. Get registered today.
Sankofa Freedom Academy Charter School is an African-centered public freedom school now accepting student enrollment from kindergarten through 12th grade. Visit www.sfacs.us and click the Intent to Enroll button to complete the form for the 2021-22 school year. For more information, call 215-288-2001.
The Black Words Book Club. WURD Radio's new monthly conversation on books that explore the African American experience through social, economic, and environmental justice issues. Tune in the second Tuesday of every month on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro, 4 p.m. till 7 p.m. For April, WURD Radio is partnering with the Free Library of Philadelphia and showcasing their pick for its annual citywide reading program, One Book, One Philadelphia, entitled The Tradition by Jericho Brown. Be sure to listen live, as Nick Taliaferro will hold a contest for a giveaway book bundle that consists of 4 titles from Kensington's Defina's Authors of Color's newest release. Don't miss it. Tuesday, April 13th on Evening Words with Nick Taliaferro. Attention for WURD members. Get your copy and receive a 20% discount when you purchase at Harriet's Bookstore or Hakeem's Bookstore. For more information on the Black Words Book Club, visit wordradio.com. The Black Words Book Club is sponsored by Defina. Defina is an imprint of Kensington Publishing Corporation, America's independent publisher, concentrating on authors of color. The WURD Radio newsletter, keeping you informed, engaged, and connected. Sign up by visiting wordradio.com. Scroll to the bottom of the page and type your email address under Connect with Us. You'll receive the latest information on WURD Radio, messages from our president and CEO, Sarah Lomax Reese, exclusive articles and multimedia content, and resources. Stay informed with the WURD Radio newsletter. Save Space with Sincerely Sarita. Right now on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD. Independent Black Media.
Yes. It's me again. And I'm back. Woo.
You are back listening to Safe Space on WURD Radio 96.1 FM 900 AM. I'm your host, sincerely Sarita. Shout out to all the folks over on WURD TV who are tuned in via Facebook Live. Malcolm, I see Casey Sells, quite a few folks over there. Appreciate you for tuning in.
And shout out
Malcolm,
to Dr. Terry on YouTube with us.
Yes, okay, come through YouTubes, come through YouTubers. Malcolm mentioned that he had his first shot on Thursday morning. He gets his second one on the 29th, so he's kind of close to you. Kayla J said he got his schedule through his oncologist at the convention center through Jefferson. So, listen, folks, at this point, we're able to, if that is your decision, to get the vaccination quite a few different ways, right? So would love to, just get some insight on what the process has been like for you, whether it's scheduling or, just in general, actually getting the shot and going through, first shot, second shot, or if you just did, I believe like Johnson & Johnson just did that, the one shot that they have available. What has that been like? Any advice that you might give to other folks? I believe we may have some folks on the line. Kayla J, let me confirm. I'm looking at the sheet and stuff. I want to make sure I got some stuff. I see two folks, but we good to go to the phone lines? Nope. Okay. Yeah, okay.
Let's take Cliff from Connecticut.
Cliff from Connecticut. Hey, Cliff, thank you so much for choosing a safe space with us today. How are you and what's on your mind?
I really appreciate taking my call. Thank you. Listen, I hope I'm not off subject, but if I am, I apologize, but I just need help, your advice. Today, watching the trial of George Floyd, particularly Chauvin, and giving testimony, expert testimony, there's no doubt that there are experts confirming everything that the witnesses or the crowd has pretty much suggested. And then in addition to that, you have the incident that took place in West Virginia with the Army official, the lieutenant that was pepper sprayed. And then also there is another police shooting and killing in Minnesota as well. That happened last night. So with this program and Safe Space, sister, can you help me to pretty much use that theme to try to get through this? Is this, why black people? Why is this happening to us?
So here's what I want to start with is first, and Kayla, I still got him on the line. I'm not sure if we.
Yep.
Okay. All right. So Cliff.
If you want me to.
No. I wanted to make sure actually that you didn't. So, I mean, for you, Cliff, what has it been like for you? And let me know if you are a black man. If so, what has it been like for you as a black man to process? I don't want to make assumptions.
Yeah, okay, sure. Okay, well, my past conversation, even with your guest, I'm sensitive to the concerns and issues of black people. And yes, to your question, I am black. Proud of it, and I thank God that he made me and created me black. And so I truly believe that black people are the chosen people of God. So with that being said, I hope that's enough to respond to your question.
Yeah. And so for you, the reality of being black in America, right, as far as why so much of this is happening, I'm always curious to know how each of us settle with that truth. I think enough of us at this point know that this is historical. This is rooted in this country. This is deeply embedded. When I say this, I mean white supremacy. I mean racism. I mean all of those things, right? That for every fight that our ancestors either overcame, died as a result of, were assassinated as a result of, have had to overcome, right? Like this has just been the reality of our existence for far too long, not just in the U.S., but around the world. And that is why even when it comes to connection across the African diaspora, even from, some might argue, an unfortunate circumstance is that we are tied together, bonded together, rooted together in the pain and reality of white supremacy, right? Of racism, of insert classism, insert fill in the blank, right? And so they're very much for the realist in me. And let me just clearly state, I don't know. I think that's the best place to start is I don't know.
Okay, all right.
I didn't create this situation, and I don't think any of us created this situation directly at this particular point in time. I think we are all at a place, given that we are present and alive in this moment, and with that, it having its own blessings, that we are going to still experience and feel the reach and the impact of white supremacy, of racism, and how deeply entrenched it is specifically in our country. And so the question becomes, what does that mean for who we are as individuals? How deeply we let that shape, our identity and how we show up in the world. And then, okay, so now where do we go from here? Because we have children and generations that are coming up behind us who, yes, y'all, they be listening to WURD. They watch what we do in our day-to-day lives. They're aware, very much so in one degree or another, of this trauma and these tragedies that are taking place. And so what does that mean for how we show up and for how we continue to combat it, how we continue to build on the work, right, and the foundation that has already been laid there? What does that mean for that? And I think a lot of that comes down to how we choose to show up every single day in our respective lives, on our jobs, in our families, fill in that blank, right? It's going to continuously be, as it always has been, our response to, but also us being proactive about the reality that we face right now, and especially now, continuing to hold officials, our educators, our systems, our leaders accountable. If you know anyone who lives in those cities, if you are someone who lives in those cities, the accountability, there's an accountability or level of power that you carry unlike anyone else who is essentially an onlooker from another state or from around the world. Right?
True. Can I just get my last point with you?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, I think this makes sense. I'm going to get other callers, and so I'll end with this. And thank you so much again for helping me out. My perspective is I think it's rooted in hatred. You know what I mean? And that's why I'm saying that there's an innate hate towards us from the oppressor, from a ethnic group of people. Why that hate? Because we are God's chosen people. And I'm simply saying is that who will go into a church, and in a church and bomb a church, kill it, go into and kill people that are attending that church? We don't do that. And better yet, we do the opposite. We love those who commit those acts towards us. So quite clearly, we as a people have that love. And what we need to do is that we need to direct that same type of love that we have for the enemy, for the white man, and direct that love towards ourselves. And that's what we don't do. So those within our cities, our urban areas, Atlanta, Baltimore, Philadelphia, our youth, embrace and love who we are. Stop the violence. Don't perpetuate that same hate coming from our oppressor, because it makes you no different. The brothers on the street makes no different from the cop in the uniform, because you're still taking a black life. And that's why I said earlier, and I was hate, I'll say this. Love and envy.
I'll say this. I appreciate well, first, thank you, Cliff, for calling in and giving some additional perspective, asking that question. I think that a lot of folks have had at either one point or another. Right. So even within that commentary and that perspective, I think there's a few things baked in that we can expand upon in terms of a conversation. Right. When we say innate, it means inborn and not like natural, like it just automatically comes with. I can't say that. OK, I know some white folk who's definitely not walking up in his church and shooting that joint up. Right. Just like I know some black folks who are not hitting the streets and shooting their neighborhood up, right? Those are not two different things, or excuse me, those are not the same things. They are two different symptoms that are tied to a greater problem, right? Which is, yes, there has been the establishment of white supremacy. There has been the establishment of racism, right? And so when we're talking about white supremacy, we're essentially talking about a belief system that white people constitute a superior race and should therefore dominate society. You can Google that, right? And that's coming up. And so just to be clear, we have allies, we have co-conspirators out there that are not with the ish, that don't subscribe to that belief system, right? But this is a belief system that has become so entrenched that it is now a political machine, that it is now baked into these other areas of society. And it's going to be on all of us, regardless of your race, to show up, call that thing out, and continue to pull out the tenets, continue to pull up the roots of it. I do not believe that a Black person in an urban setting that is resulting to violence, gun violence specifically, is the same as an officer who kills someone. Those are two totally different situations to me that cannot be compared, because one lacks complete power to take life. Same level, right? Everyone, every single one of us, no matter your race, ethnicity, socioeconomic background, we can all take life if we're being completely honest. We can all take life. We cannot all use our jobs to take life. That is something very different. We are not all, quote unquote, agents of the state. We are not all employed by the government and therefore able to take life because of our employment. I don't compare those two things. I don't even think that's fair to compare those things. Personally, you signed up for that job as an officer. So you knew you would have direct access to that kind of power. Now, whatever you brought to that job, like so many other people, sometimes what we bring to our job, right, is like that again, it's on the system to make sure that there's a good filter in place, a good process in place to identify those things or those belief systems that may be a part of you or deeply embedded in you. You know, to even sit here and think about it in this moment is like, that should absolutely, if it's not already to some degree, I know I've heard folks attest to the fact that there is some level of processing that takes place to understand an officer's, you know, belief systems, et cetera, and how that might influence their policing, right? But that system seems just as flawed as the bigger system that everyone is a part of, which is why we have a lot of folks who are doing these jobs that have no business doing these jobs. They have absolutely no business doing this job, but they're protected. And so they're able to do this job. And with that job comes the ability to take life. But it also what comes with it is protection once you take a life. Qualified immunity, you know, the blue wall of silence, like all of these things come with a position. You kill somebody in the street, you better hope somebody don't say nothing. You better hope someone buys into the code or the belief of no snitching, which I'm going to be honest, hard to come by today. And with good reason, with darn good reason. Right? So I don't equate those two things as the same, as being one and the same. I think they both are, again, symptoms of a bigger problem, of a bigger dis-ease, right? But they're not the same thing. What led to the gun violence play in our streets, right, on a smaller scale, on an individual level, is very different than someone on their job choosing to take that kind of power and use it in such a way. I think those require different mindsets, right? But I think ultimately both mindsets are tied to the bigger issue. And this is the thing, if America, in particular, the United States of America, because we have South America, so let me specify, if the United States of America wants to have any real hope or shot at resolving an issue that we have seen, we have so many instances of, proof of, right? Stop dealing with the symptoms. Start dealing with the root. And that's not me saying that to us as a Black community, right? Or to allies who are listening, allies of the Black community. This is me saying this to America, to the powers that be, right? But the other side of that, the reality, is that that requires a giving up of, or a surrendering of, an assumed power that has been in play for at least I know the entirety of my life, likely also the entirety of your life. I mean, I don't know that we have any listeners that are 400 plus years old. So all of our lives, right? And so I think part of this is we get angry, we get frustrated, we get, completely caught up in each of these instances of police brutality, of state-sanctioned violence, of all of that. For every news broadcast that we see about that, we have our children in an education system that on a day-to-day basis are experiencing microaggressions. Do we see them as victims too? Do we understand that too? We got folks that are on the job every single day, having to decide between code switching or not, how they show up as their full selves, all of these things. And so in terms of the work, as far as dismantling a system, it's just that, dismantling a system. And if anyone is of the belief that after George Floyd or Breonna Taylor or you fill in the name, that the system was just going to stop, I hate to be the one to tell you that's not going to happen. It is a well-oiled system with a lot of cogs, right, in it. And so what that means is that forever, whatever cog you are in the system, it's on us to start to systematically either dismantle it, reconfigure it, etc., based on where we sit. And so I shout out to a lot of the educators I know that are focusing on restorative justice, that are focusing on, teaching the whole child, not just the academic side of it. Shout out to the community leaders that are not just decrying the violence, but trying to figure out, okay, what are the opportunities that lack in this neighborhood that we need to see present? Because statistics have shown when you have opportunity, when you have education, when you have all of these things, right, that you're going to see a different outcome. You're more likely to see a different outcome. Shout out to the folks who are doing the mental health wellness work, because what we know for sure in the past year plus is that folks have not been okay on a mental health wellness level. And so we might just be talking about one specific thing. Oh my gosh, there's all this gun violence, there's all this shooting, as though that is completely separate from the fact that there's all this pandemic that is still happening, that there's all this struggle that is still happening. And we wonder, oh, well, what were they thinking? How did we get here? How did we this, that, and the third? Chances are they don't even know what they were thinking. That's why mental health wellness is so important. That's why, we got to start taking therapy and counseling and seeing ourselves in those positions to help in that kind of way more serious, and putting more value and respect on it and normalizing it. It's a lot of different things that all contribute to the system, which is why it's important for all of us to show up in all these different areas of the system. And not just to show up, but to be present and committed and aware of our role, not just in that system, but of systematically shifting, changing, breaking down the very thing that has oppressed us. and not just us, right? Like to show up in those spaces, to show up in that leadership, fully aware of all of who we are and all of what we're not or who we're not, and to be very focused on, we need to do better. We have to do better. This system has been functioning with the assumption or with the intention of only serving and reflecting one demographic. And I will say, it's not just race. It's not just race. The only thing potentially bigger than race is classism. That's why you have, folks who are white, Caucasian, however you choose to identify, right? They say you have those that got money and those that don't. And so we end up having this almost like this caste system, a variation of it, where you got rich white folk, and you got poor white folk, and then you got black folks. Like we saw how that system played out. And that is, I think, even why there's this disconnect between middle class or middle class to poverty-stricken white folks and middle class to poverty-stricken black folk, right? Of not even fully realizing or understanding that beyond what separates us, beyond that being racism, is classism. And far too often, classism plays a major role in things. Money plays a major role in things, and how we even discuss the problems, whether we keep the problems just at race. I don't know. Y'all can call in 215-634-8065. Again, 215-634-8065. You can also call in toll free 866-361-0900. I just want to hear from y'all at this point. I know I didn't even get to all of my weekend and stuff, and it was an intense weekend for, a few different reasons, right? We had the legend, the icon, DMX himself, who passed at the age of 50. We have, a lot of birthdays that took place. Jasmine Sullivan's birthday was April 9th. We had Babyface and Q-Tip, whose birthdays were both on April 10th. So as far as our immediate community is concerned, there was quite a bit that took place this weekend. We also had the passing of Prince Philip. And just FYI, y'all, yes, David Alexander Jenkins will join us tomorrow to discuss that. And so, it was a heck of a weekend. A lot to process, for just as much as there was to celebrate. There was a lot of mourning that I saw taking place. And, sending love, light, comfort, that and so much more to DMX's, better known as Earl Simmons, to his family. He transitioned at the age of 50 years old. And, that transition brought about a lot of discussion around how we show up for folks in our lives, in our community, who either have or were battling addiction. What does it look like to be, human, but to also be spiritual, right? And to lead with your faith, to lead with your spirituality, which is something that DMX most certainly did. I saw a lot of discussions around like the importance of telling your story. Of showing up as your authentic self, like all of these different things. These kind of conversations derive from the life of one human being, and so I can only imagine, if we were to consider that at any given moment, how many conversations would happen as a result of my life and my truth. Think about that for you, because that can play a part in how you show up every day, how you engage with folks, how you live authentically. I know I'm over break. So Kayla J, let me know. Should I take the break? Should I keep rocking? I know we got some callers
let's try to get these 3 calls in.
Okay, all right. So let's go to, I believe we have Miss Bobby on line 3. Miss Bobby, thank you so much for calling in and choosing a safe space with us today. What's on your mind?
What's on my mind is some of the things that you had said, but I'm gonna be very quick and brief. I want people to begin to understand. Everybody, I don't understand how black people don't get it. Why white people treat us as bad as they can because they know they can get away with it. That's one thing. But listen, before there were black slaves in America, England, and they have a slave ship that identifies it. You can look it up now. They don't hide it anymore. White people were slaves. So when they got out of being slaves, when they started bringing black people in and making them slaves, those white people, and then we got freedom. It's that legislative law by the federal government, which is upsetting white because they hate us so much so we're not their slaves. Okay, and my next one is I want to speak about Bill Gates. I was on Facebook when this pandemic came out. First, his wife came up and said that black people, after they decided that we should take the shot to be the experimental pig. And then he came on Facebook a couple months ago saying that black people should take the shot, et cetera, et cetera. But today I heard on a different radio station that Bill Gates has refused to take any vaccine, and his wife is not taking any vaccine. Now, I want to know, how does he have the audacity to tell us people on Facebook that we should take the vaccine? That was, I guess, at the onset. And my final thing, getting back to white people being slaves, when white people stopped, because what happened was England was sending it over, and Ben Franklin, who was something like a slave boy in England, but he came to America and made himself well. But he hated it so much that they were sending all of these white people over that he said, if I had a way to put a poisonous snake in a basket and send it to the king, and when he opened it, the snake would kill him. So I just want to make it clear that we were not the first slave. It was white slaves, the people who were, as you was talking about, the money level, your social, economical
The
status.
classism and all of that.
Classism.
Got you. Yeah, no, I appreciate you, Miss Bobby, for calling in and contributing to the conversation. So I'm trying to think of a few different points as far as where to best touch on. And yes, like we saw, or at least we know that there were and continue to be indentured servants, that was a variation of slavery that existed, that many white folks were subjected to. And so I think even that informs, or could better inform, a lot of the relationships that do or don't exist between races, right? Knowing that at some point in many of our histories, our ancestors either were indentured servants, were slaves, or enslaved, I should say, or some variation, right, of that, of subjugation, of being of that lower class, and whatever else the case may be. And so that, like they say, there's more that we have in common than we don't. And if we would start focusing on the more that we have in common, we probably would see less of this fracturing of humanity. But that's not beneficial in terms, when we're talking about classism and whatever else the case may be. It's not beneficial for that, right? You need to have some fracturing so that you can then create a structure in which there is some level of hierarchy, right? The fractures are actually what can help contribute to the hierarchy that then exists. As far as Bill Gates, and then definitely Facebook, I'm just saying, y'all, that's going to take me back to a conversation I had a while ago. I want to say that was on the lounge or happy hour, of just like how to recognize credible and non-credible sources. And y'all going to bring out the journalism, the journalist in me, that whole side of it, because we have to be diligent, all of that, and making sure that the information we're consuming is from credible sources. And I will say social media platforms do not make that an easy process. They do not make that an easy process. So when you might just be watching a video, you don't know who created that video. You don't know which platform published that video. All you know is you see it on your feed from someone who you trust who reposted it. And I've seen this play out time and time again. I've been a part of it where I've just asked, who created this video? Oh, I don't know. I saw so-and-so, you know, post it, and that's my folks, and so I repost. But who created the video? Who wrote this? What website is this? Who owns this website? Like, I now more than ever, we cannot afford to have or contribute in any way to the spread of misinformation, disinformation, etc. Right? And so one thing I could just offer really quickly in this moment is if you see something on Facebook, make sure you also follow up with a Google search, right? And see which websites are reporting on what and why. I'm not saying that, you know, that certain things can't be true. I'm saying it's up to you to make sure it's true before you then bring it to a platform and tout it as truth. That's important too. It's absolutely important too, right? I want to make sure we get to our other caller. I believe we have Matt on line 1. Hey, Matt, thank you so much for choosing a safe space with us today. How are you? And what's on your mind?
Fine. I'm fine. Well, I just want to come out and say, like, first off, we got to be 100% real when we're talking about this stuff, or nothing's going to get done. Nothing's going to get solved. If people are, you know, super right, super left, or, you know, or caught up in their propaganda. But how that lady was just saying, you know, about white people being slaves, absolutely correct. And you said the indentured servitude. You know, so many people forget about that. Like when the Irish came over, they got off a boat and they got a gun stuck in their hand and got sent to war, or, you know, had to work forever until they could buy their freedom. You know, they weren't even allowed in buildings or to apply for jobs. Irish need not apply. Signs in every window. You know, and when we start, like you said, recognizing the similarities, that's great. But I'm saying, like you know, people got to stop getting their information from Facebook and Twitter, and like you were saying, the journalistic integrity, because there is none in this world today. And the way they're playing us against each other, you know, black against white in the cities. You nailed it when you said class system, because that's what it is. It's to destroy the middle class, keep us fighting amongst ourselves, while they turn us all into peasants and serfs. And then they'll have their elite ruling class and with their foot on all of our necks. You know, that's their ultimate game plan. But, you know, like the racism in both communities, it's got to be recognized, and you know, you can't say that it doesn't come from one side and not from the other. It comes completely from both. And it's out of hand. You know, I actually had a bunch of points I wanted to touch on, but, you know, as I am driving, I couldn't jot anything down. But
yeah, no, I appreciate you, Matt. I appreciate you for calling in and adding to the discussion. And, you know, yes, I think we can't afford to underestimate the power of classism and the role that plays, right? I don't think at any point that excuses or diminishes the reality that especially the black community faces when it comes to racism and white supremacy, right? Like that is very real. We are still seeing the effects of that, right? Like we got to think about how far out, and really not that far out, you know, we are from the civil rights movement, from even being, you know, considered from even making that transition of being property versus being listed as human beings, right? And which is why so many of us within the black community even struggle to trace our roots, because we were listed as property before. Like we look back at those historical documents, we were property. I'll say our ancestors were listed as property. And so we're talking about a very near past where even that transition is still fresh from when we're not viewed like your couch was viewed, like your car was viewed, like the car you drive in was viewed as property. Oh wait, 3/5. Okay, like, has there ever been a document that actually came about and said black people are full human beings? Right? Like, we can go back to the Constitution right now and still see flaws in it that continue to contribute to the oppression through the use of the tool of racism, of white supremacy, that still exists for black people, for indigenous folks, which some of us may be more familiar with the term Native American, for our Latinx, Latino, Latina, fam, like Asian Americans. Like, we're not that far from the bottom in terms of like the darkest parts of our country's history. So we got a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. That work, I think we've had examples of, as indicated by the past, that work is more effective and can be more impactful when there are more of us who are on the same page about the changes that we want to see, right? Like, this isn't, I don't think like having necessarily I don't know if I could say that on the radio, having a contest to see whose struggle XYZ is worse at this point is going to be as helpful as, here is the real issue. Let's not lose sight of that. And let's make sure, as we go about working together to fix that issue, that we're also addressing the inherent biases, the mark that racism, that white supremacy, that classism, that all of these things have left in us, because they have. None of us are untouched by it. No part of our life is really untouched by it. Even if you are, like, for example, the most pro-black person, right? How much of that was as a result of or in response to the oppression that you've experienced or that your ancestors experienced? Had they not experienced that oppression or that white supremacy, would there even be this conception of being pro-black? Or would it just been you and your people? And you being like this human being who loves other human beings, who's taking care of your family, who's loving on your community, who's like, how much of our definitions and identities are a direct response to the white supremacy, the racism, the classism, all of these different structures that we have had to operate within? And I do want to push back a little bit on what Matt said, that there is no journalistic integrity that exists. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think it is there. I think it is. We are definitely in a time where it's not even just a time, because we can go back to like yellow journalism and like all those other things. If we really want to start going the history route, there's always been instances of where the media, right, is wrong, or doesn't, practice integrity in telling the stories of communities and of humanity. But I would be remiss and quite frankly just flat out wrong to say that I know that journalistic integrity doesn't exist. It absolutely does. But it's also on us, the consumers, the citizens, to make sure that journalism, to make sure that the media is playing its correct role. And the media, journalism, you're supposed to be a watchdog for the people. For the people, not a political group, not a specific demographic, but for the people. We started to have these differentiations in response to or because of racism, classism, white supremacy, all of these other things, capitalism, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Right? And so that's why you can have like 5 big major news corporations that control probably 90% of the news that you consume. How does that seem right or okay or fair? Like, yeah, anyhow, y'all, Don't y'all, let's talk about it on this here Monday. I believe we have Lola online too. Hey, Lola, thank you so much for choosing a safe space. How are you and what's on your mind?
Yes, hi. Hello?
Yep, I can hear you. You're good.
Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I had to take off my earpieces. Thanks for taking my call. This conversation, I was driving home from work, and man, I was like, oh my God, I got a call. This is so. It's like amazing, like you even talking about this, because we were having this discussion. Some of the people who are coming back, back to work and stuff after the pandemic, just a couple of days a week, and it just seems like people. I don't understand it, Sarita. Like, I felt like we should have a monumental change within our community and within ourselves. Like, I think that there should have been something monumental that should have came out of everything that happened, the racial pandemic, the health pandemic. And I think that if we aren't moved more by what is going on, what is going to move us? What is going to make people change their mindset? Just going back to the same old, the same old consumerism, the same old greediness, the same old just microwave, give me everything now. No empathy, no anything like pre-COVID, pre the racial pandemic. And I just also wanted to touch on what you were talking about with the code switching and everything at work. I mean, yes, it is real, especially if you work in a corporate job. And I just feel like oh my God, Sarita, it's just like, even pre-pandemic, if you would say things or whatever, if you knew that, microaggressions and macroaggressions that were coming at you, you're the angry black woman, even if you're educated, you know what I mean? If you call people on their stuff, you're angry, you're jaded, you're this, you're that. And then I just feel like after the pandemic, like, I'm not taking that, and I don't think that we should. I'm not talking about being angry, but I'm talking about we have to have real conversations with people, because when you were talking about the classism, yes, the classism is real. It's real in every race, no matter what race you are, black, white, Chinese, Puerto Rican. There's classism in all our races, you know what I'm saying? So I think that that's always going to be there, because think about it. I think you're born and raised in Philly, I think, and I wasn't like, when I lived growing up uptown with my parents, people would always say all these bad, negative things about people who live in North Philly. And I'm like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? Our family lives there. And then now we see how that area is the area that everybody wants to live in, that everybody wants to be in now, that everybody wants those areas that they will always try to say were not the good areas, that were not, even though I understand that there's a lot of crime and stuff going on. I'm talking about the property. I'm talking about how we, as a lot of black people, would come from down south. You move to certain areas, right? And then you get some couple dollars, and then you move up, right? And then you forget about that. Listen, those parts of the towns have the most cultural aspects of where we came from when you first came from, mostly everybody migrating from down south. And that really bothered me to hear people say, no, North Philly's this, don't go down there, I don't want to get into all of that, but that's the thing I'm talking about with the classism. And I feel like that's always going to be there. But the racism is the thing, Sarita, that we really have to have these tough conversations with people of different races. We have to be honest, because if we keep doing what we did 50 years ago, 40 years ago.
Oh, I might have lost you. There you go.
Oh, hello?
Yep, nope, I heard you. If we keep doing what we did 40 years ago, 50 years ago, you had went out right at that point.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm so sorry. Yeah, I was saying, if we keep doing the things that we were doing then and not having the honest conversations, we're still going to be in the same place when our children get older, when our children get in the next generation. If we do not have these open conversations now, this racism is like, I feel every day, Sarita, I don't know if other people feel this way, that there is something boiling underneath. that this world, we cannot live like this. We cannot take this continuously. Like there's something boiling that's going to explode. You understand what I'm saying? In the society, if we do not deal with the things that are going on now, we can't live like this. And I just want to share this, like, even after the racial pandemic, I was so angry, Sarita, at white people. I didn't want to see one. I was just like, I had this heavy thing on me, like, look what they've done to us all these years, 20 years ago. Now they're killing us on TV straight, you know, even though it was happening before. But now you just got this straight killing on TV. We got Brianna. We got Aubrey. We got even going back to Trayvon. Right. And I think, like you said, with the mental health thing, we really got to get in touch with our mental health, talk to somebody, get it out, because this trauma will eat at you every single day. And we can't go out in the world like that. And we can't raise our children like that. You know what I'm saying? It will.
It will. Thank you, Lola, for so much of your transparency and honesty in that. And I'm beyond a break. But I tell you what, let's take a break. And as we take a break, I want to make sure, you know, wherever you're at, if you're in your car, if you're parked up, if you're in your home, if you're cooking, whatever you're doing, as we take this break, you take breaths, right? Inhale, exhale, count 5 in, 5 out, do that 10 times. Let's breathe, because it's a lot to process. And we'll do that. And when we come back on the other side, we'll pick up the conversation. And we're going to do that together, because that's what we do around here, is we save space together to process, to better understand. And there are some things that Lola spoke on that I also want to, you know, touch a bit on as well. And I know we have some callers on the line. And if you want to join the conversation, you know, you can always do that around here. 215-634-8065. That's the hotline number. Again, 215-634-8065. You can also call in toll free, 866-361-0900. Again, 866-361-0900. The only thing I ask, and then you have to promise me, is that you make sure you take those deep breaths before you call in, before we jump back into this conversation, right? Because we got to be, again, we talk about mental health, wellness, and practicing all of these tools and techniques and whatever else the case may be. We got to make sure we do that in this moment, because I'm sure in many ways this conversation has been triggering for a lot of us in different ways. And we got to honor that. We got to give some space for that. So always save space to breathe. Okay? You're listening to Safe Space on WURD Radio, 96.1 FM, 900 AM. I'm your host, sincerely, Sarita. So thankful to be here with you on this Motivation Monday, Money Monday, all this good stuff, top of a new week that we're blessed to be here to see. We'll be back after these messages.
I'm Henry Louis Gates Jr. We are people of resilience. No matter what happens, we fight through the pain. We protect our traditions. We uphold our excellence. So let's protect our lives. With vaccines, we can trust. We can do this.
To learn more about COVID-19 vaccines, visit cdc.gov/coronavirus. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services.
If you haven't had the privilege to use ACAP's products, treat yourself. We made it easy for you to shop for good quality essential products with the help of local businesses such as cultural stores, convenience stores, gas stations, and local supermarkets. ACAP's, servicing the community since 1969.
Barbers on Broad. We know grooming is important. Let us show you why. Our barbers have over a decade of experience providing quality services in a professional manner. We specialize in all the classic styles and cuts while delivering the sharpest finishes. Located at 1220 North Broad Street, Suite 3, best in town, best on Broad, Barbers on Broad. Mention this ad to save 10% on your next service. This ad is brought to you by the North Broad Renaissance and Truist Foundation.
Nappy-style hair products are formulated for today's Black men and women's hair, embracing ancestral hairstyles. Come and experience these products. Beard oil for men, cream paste, and napping gel growth oil for braids. Go to www.nappystyles.com or The Movement in Mount Airy, 7133 Germantown Avenue, or African Cultural Art Forum, 221 South 52nd Street, or Culture Exchange, 1450 Point Breeze Avenue. Be happy to be nappy.
Okay, Her's new fire potato chips and cheese curls, they are spicy. Whew, they're hottest snacks yet, hold on. Whew, but you know, it's not just heat. There's some nice sweet and savory stuff going on too. Ooh, there's that heat again. It burns, but it burns so tasty. Ooh, that's hot. Find Her's Fire Snacks at your store today. Whew, taste the flavor, feel the heat, break out the Her's.
Family Therapy Vignette Moments with Dr. Lucille Ijoy.
How do homeless people make out during these pandemic times? Besides eating, finding places to live, getting vaccines and wearing masks, washing their hands, and living 6 feet from each other. Phew, I look and see that I have some good stuff I won't wear again. Yes, that's right. I'm not going to wear this stuff again. The shoes are good. I'm not wearing these again. The hats are good. I won't be wearing them either. I'm going to gently wrap this stuff and give it to a thrift store, all for free. It's pandemic time. Besides, I'm having more space and I can breathe better during pandemic times. I have a friend, Miss Dorcas. She's a WURD listener. I bet Dorcas gives away good stuff during this pandemic time. Why not?
This is WURD Radio, 96.1 FM and 900 AM WURD Philadelphia. Independent Black Media. Grab your mic. It's time for Kayla J's Karaoke Song of the Day.
What good is it for a man to gain the world, yet lose his own soul in the process?
I know you never seen him, but don't fight with him. You're gonna make it through the night till the light with him. You're all right with him. Said you're all right with him. I know you never seen him, but don't fight with him. You're gonna make it through the night till the light with him. You're all right with him. Said you're all right with him.
I'm calling out to you, Lord, because I need your help. See, once again, I'm having difficulty saving myself, behaving myself. You told me what to do, and I do it, but every now and then, it gets a little harder to go through it. Losing friends, day by day. I'm in so much pain when I'm here, Lord. Please take me away. I put you here to do a job, and your work ain't done. To live is to suffer, but you're still my son. And there will be a time when you shine as bright as the stars. But there won't be a his or hers, just ours. Then you'll see what I've been trying to show you all these years. Do the right thing, 'cause after the tears, come the cheers. I will, my Lord, with my heart and my soul. That's gonna be how I roll, from now until I'm old. Lead and I'll follow, you take away the sorrow. I'ma sleep on what you said and holler back tomorrow.
You never seen him, but don't fight with him. You're gonna make it through the night till the light with him. You're all right with him. I said you're all right with him. I know you never seen him, but don't fight with him. You're gonna make it through the night till the light with him. You're all right with him. I said you're all right with him.
I want you to know, Lord, that for what you've given me, I'm thankful. Sincerely, from the bottom of my heart, I'm grateful. You gave us power in our words, so I think before I speak. And that way, when I speak, they know I'm here to teach. Can't tell them nothing wrong, 'cause I love them too much. I reach a lot of people, and Lord, I'm loving the touch. But deep inside, I got something that's working against. Everything I know is right, what I know makes sense. That's when you must fight harder than you ever fought before. 'Cause what you got going on inside you is a war between good and evil. Be careful of those who want to be you. They smile, but are not really happy when they see you. Be careful of the ones that always want to get you high. 'Cause when the time comes, that one will let you die. Listen to me, I'm here, but I can only help you if you want me to help? What do you want for yourself?
I know you never seen him, but don't fight with him. You're gonna make it through the night to the light with him.
You are back listening to Safe Space on WURD Radio, and rest. Just rest. That's what I think a lot of us, many of us, thought when we received the news that DMX had transitioned. And it's honestly been, the only word I can think of is beautiful to see the different clips of his interviews, of his performances, of all these different things, of just him being in his element, being in his zone, that folks have been sharing on social media. And I shared on mine. This was at that point in time when I shared it. He was still on life support, but I came across this podcast interview that he did with Talib Kweli, and he talked about his life. He always did, of course. Shared his story, some of what he's overcome, some of what he was still battling, growing through, all of those things. And I shared some of that because it really just kind of resonated with me, the way in which, he talked about, and I think we even talked about this a bit on the show at that particular point in time, but, how he first came to experience, substance use, right? At that particular point, it was not substance abuse. And so he talked a bit about that and how that was tied and connected to, an old head, right? Somebody who he looked up to, who he respected, and didn't know that they, had taken an action that would affect the rest of his life. And, I see, and I think it's important to acknowledge the role of addiction, of that battle, of that growth process, because yes, even that is a growth process, whether you view it as such or not, it is. I think it's important to acknowledge that and to have real conversations about that. I think it's also important to be mindful of not summing up someone's legacy and just that. Like, we're more than one thing. And the more that we can be mindful and acknowledging and celebrating the whole person, not just, some aspects of them, but just the whole person, the whole human being. I think the more humanity we can practice in that moment, the more we can actually improve humanity in every moment, if that makes sense. So I hope folks will be a little bit more intentional and mindful in the way in which they choose, or we choose, to discuss his legacy, especially as his family mourns. If you ever, to some degree, believe in a higher power and have questioned whether or not you are here for a reason, or whether or not you have some value, I can only pray that you can look at an example like DMX and see how, no matter who you are, no matter where you come from, no matter what, you have something to bring to the table, and you can be used in the most positive of ways. And it really is, to a degree, like, up to you, right? And how you choose to show up, and how you choose to communicate the values that are important to you, and the ways in which you ultimately impact your family, your life, your family, your community, your workspace, your whatever it may be, right? Because I see folks talking about addiction like they're not battling stuff too, right? Everybody's got something. Everybody's got something. Shout out to Robin Roberts. I think that's the title of her book. Everybody's got something, right? That you're going through, that you're battling through, that you're growing through, however you want to describe it. And it's up to us. The onus is on us to normalize the experience of having something. and of being connected in the midst of whatever your something is, right? That's on us. And so, one thing I did share and did want to speak to on my social media platform was just, acknowledging the journey and the growth that, folks who either have overcome addictions or are still navigating them, acknowledging that portion of the journey, because I know in my own way I've had to navigate that as well and overcome that as well, time and again. Like it's real, right? But it's a something. You can have something, and that something is not everything of who you are. And please do not let anyone tell you differently. You are not the sum total of your something. You are far more than that, and you have far more to offer to the world. So just want to kind of leave that piece of motivational Monday juice with you, right? So we got to get ready to welcome our girl, Joanna Jane. But I know we have two callers that have been waiting patiently on the line, so I want to make sure we get to them. I believe we still have Clara on line 1. And Clara, if you are there, hello, love. Thank you so much for waiting patiently. How are you, and what's on your mind?
Well, first, a lot of things I was going to say, but I do want to extend a sense of mercy and grace to the family of DMX. Under these conditions, may they draw together in a peaceful, calm sense of the word. My heart goes out to the same thing with George Floyd's family. Even though that happened a while ago, the same issues are still there. That, we are seen for what we brought to the public in a good way, our whole being, not just a segment of our life. Mm-hmm. And as the caller, Lola, I think, really inspired me to stop looking at it on Facebook in the call because, I think a lot of people are having coping issues, whether they self-medicate or don't. So I want to give you a solution for coping. Now, this is a challenge your wellness police has put out on simply saying to oneself out loud or quietly, bring the joy. That's all you have to do. Every time you walk through a doorway, whether it's in your home or in the kitchen or the bathroom, when you walk in or exit that doorway, say to yourself, bring the joy. Honest to God, it has some outstanding results. If you do it religiously, consistently, persistently, everything around you sparkles, and even though the heaviness in the air and the community around is hurting, you stop hurting. So bring the joy is one of my solutions, but I actually wasn't going to offer that. My call was regarding, if I may ask a couple questions real quick, Verizon customers. I watched someone very close to me go through something the last 7 days without service over the most flukiest situation I've ever heard of. Verizon had been overcharging her, and speaking of what we were talking about as far as the past is still going on. Long story made short, they made up a lie and said that she told them that someone in her home had COVID-19, and therefore they weren't going to service her after 6 no-shows. One of the texts rudely said to her, well, you have somebody in your home with COVID-19. And I said to the lady who this is going on with, I said, well, when does Verizon stop servicing people with COVID? Not that you have COVID or anyone else in your home. That's all made up. But, I mean, how dare them be so blatant and so ignorant to make that kind of statement to a customer? So I want to know, is COVID-19 a new racial way of getting out of work for corporations? Because I noticed PHA won't open their doors to the public. The Treasury Department doesn't even want to talk to people over the telephone with unclaimed property, all hiding behind COVID-19. I don't think you can catch COVID-19 by the telephone, state of Pennsylvania. Can you? So what do you think?
Yeah, no. So first and foremost, thank you, Ms. Clara, for calling in and first sharing that affirmation with us. Of bring the joy, right? And that can, I will be the first to acknowledge that can be challenging depending on the space that you got to walk into. That might be challenging for some of us. But I think, looking at it through that lens of affirmations, of intentionality, that is certainly can be powerful, and recognizing what you can bring to a space, right? That you can be a space shifter, so to speak, an energy shifter, that we all have that power. And it does start with the intentionality that we have, and the ownership, the onus that we take over our energy and what it means, or how it can be used once we enter a space. So I appreciate you for sharing that Motivation Monday affirmation. That's what I'm recognizing it as. In terms of what happened with the person that that apparently was treated as such, like, even as you were sharing, I'm like, okay, first of all, definitely sounds like a complaint needs to be filed. But I would even say to not knowing whether this could lead to anything, but to follow up with an elected official and let them know about that experience, and to see if any other folks that are being serviced in any, by any provider are experiencing something similar. Because we definitely, you don't necessarily know something is a trend or that it's becoming a practice until usually it's being reported on or enough people have said something. And so, I think definitely us documenting these experiences, either by sharing them, right? Like Ms. Clara did just in this moment, or making our elected officials know, making it known to them, is going to be really important, because we have yet to see the full impact of COVID-19. We have yet to see the full impact of this pandemic and what this is going to mean for the future, and for future human interaction and treatment of one another, for what this is going to mean for our health system, and the way in which the health system deals with or treats, supports or does not, folks who have either contracted COVID-19, been diagnosed with it, or family members, right? Our family members. So I think it would do us well for all of us to pay really close attention to how corporations are choosing to handle this, whether it's in employment, whether it's, front facing as customers or client based, like work goes, to really be mindful in that. I know there was specific mention of PHA. I can say I know PHA has had doors open. They definitely, as far as I know, have not necessarily been meeting one-on-one with clients, but I know the PHA buildings that I'm familiar with, folks were able, at least within the past 6 months or so, to go in there, get their paperwork, request phone appointments, like that kind of thing. Has it been full service? No, I don't think that anything has been at this point. But yeah, I think Ms. Clara brings something really important to the table for us to be mindful in how COVID is shaping all of the systems that we're impacted by, and what that ultimately means for how our humanity is or is not regarded, right, or honored. Let's get in one more call before we bring in Joanna Jane. I believe we have George on line 2. Hey, George, thanks for your patience. How are you, and what's on your mind?
I'm doing fine. Really, the lady was right, and I think you were a little delirious on just saying go to the elected officials. They're the ones who are happy as COVID, so they don't have to deal with people. If you really look at your elected officials, they're so happy with this, they don't have to be hugging people, shaking their hands, interacting with them. Next time you see one of your elected officials, ask yourself, do they look the same as they did last year? Answer be no. This is what I really called about when you were talking about recovery. Recovery comes in all kinds of ways of people having problems, mental health and all. It's that you got to be careful who you have at the table negotiating for you. People who negotiate for people with mental health, most of them don't know nothing about mental health. I mean, it's really a mental health hustle. You got these people who, really hustles the system. They get on whatever bandwagon that the money's coming through on. And right now, it's a lot of money in mental health and people, with people with all type of depressions, you talk to the average person, they think mental health is a person who has a drug addiction, but it's not. People been through trauma, all types of things. That's why I always say, be careful who you send into the room to negotiate for you and, on behalf of you. Because most of them, me being in the rooms, they're never in there for you. They're mostly in there for themselves or their company. They're protecting their job, and they don't know nothing about mental health. The people in this city who help the mental health people, really, the people with all types of problems, is the people who basically don't even have nothing to do with mental health. The people who are really, not all of them, but I say about 60% of them that are in mental health, it's all about the bottom line, the dollar, the insurance. We want you to do this. We want you to do that. And it's sad. Once you get in the room and see how things really play out and how they just move people around as pawns and all that there, you just shake your head. When you really get tired of it, you can say something and it'll stop for a minute. But it's like a kid. And the kids do what they do until they get caught doing bad behavior. Then they might stop until they learn how not to get caught. But I'm glad you brought that up about the different parts of mental health. DMX, everybody has some type of demon. Most people just know how to control their demons better. And then some people have demons and don't even know they have demons. That's the sad part. They're the ones that sick. The ones that are sick is the ones who got
We
demons.
all got something.
Yeah, but
we
they
all
don't
have
think they have
something.
anything. It's like the smartest. It's a friend of mine always say, the smartest guy in the room. And you know how they're the smartest one in the room? Because they're the only one in the room. Then you can't be nothing but the smartest guy in the room. So they say, I have no problems at all. But he's taking 15, 20 pills a day, but he don't have no problems, Well, I'm not depressed. And you ever notice how the real intellectual get up there and tell you all these great things about people? They're really telling you about themselves. You learn that through a psychologist or a psychiatrist. I have a couple of friends that are psychologists and psychiatrists, and they say, just watch the guy who stands up there and tell you about everybody's problem. He's telling you about himself. Or she's telling you about herself. And it's true. And I'm glad you brought that out. And, you had some pretty good callers that called in, and they were pretty much on the money with it. They didn't get into their little feelings and personal. You get sick of that, people telling you their war story. Don't tell me about the war story. Tell me about what really is happening. But, each his own. And
I appreciate that. I appreciate that, George. And yeah, I think you brought a great point to the table in terms of being mindful who you send to represent you, right? And that's I think in any situation, definitely with our elected officials, is being mindful of who we're sending to represent us. I can't confirm the statistic that was provided. I know that I see a lot of folks, and I've even had to be those folks, especially when it comes to our young folks, advocating or simply standing in the gap, when it comes to mental health wellness and support and all of those things. For me, that I was getting back into being a life skills instructor, right? And a lot of life skills comes with it comes with just the emotional, the mental, the spiritual, like all of those sides of life that school doesn't usually tend to teach you about, right? That, quite frankly, you might not always find in the household, as part of everyday discussion or, tools, techniques, whatever that are being taught. And I'll never forget going through a trauma-informed care training. And it was so triggering, y'all, for me. And it ultimately led to good. But what it confirmed for me is that it's so important for those who are in positions of power, those who are in positions of influence, who are responsible for impacting lives, to go through those kinds of trainings that, you may not think are associated with your job in any way. But if you don't deal with your trauma, if you don't understand who you are, why you do the things you do, why you think the way you think, what your core motivators are, if you don't take time to learn that and to invest in that, you don't know what all you're bringing into the spaces that you enter. You may not even be aware of it, right? You have no clue of how all of these things that you do and don't think about that maybe you feel like you've gotten over, or, you've dealt with, or, that's the past, or but it's you, it's a part of you. It is a part of you. And like with anything, and especially like with any kind of creature, if you deprive it of attention, if you deprive it of comfort and care, and all of these things, right, of actually being able to heal through those ways, it becomes a monster. And that was something that I know DMX had said at one point, was like a monster was born. Right? Like when he was talking about his entrance into addiction, that was how he kind of described it. Was like that moment, being 14 years old, like that was when the monster was born. Right? And again, wanting to re-emphasize that we are more than our monsters. We can be more than our monsters. Doesn't mean that the monster ain't real. Doesn't mean that it's not there. It's not present. That it's not something that you may have to fight on a daily basis or weekly, whatever that may look like for you. Doesn't mean that that's not the reality or the truth of it. It's just that you are more than that. And you have to remember that for yourself. You got to remind yourself of that. Surround yourself with people who remind you of that when you forget. Because we can forget. We can forget at any given point in time who we are, what we're here to do, how how all of our beauty. This is, we get so caught up with the beast, right? Anyhow, we got to take a quick break, but when we come back on the other side, we're going to bring in Joanna Jane, check in with her on this Money Monday, and I think this. Oh, we can keep going. Okay, because I was about to say, I think this can flow right into the mindfulness that is required when it comes to our finances, and like dealing with trauma that could potentially be tied to finances, right? If you grew up in poverty or extreme poverty, or like you saw, your parents make decisions, or your guardians, whomever, make decisions that were very much tied to your livelihood, that plays a part in how you view money. That plays a part in whatever financial monster you may or may not be dealing with, right? Or contributing to the creation of. And so, again, all things are one. All things are interconnected. And it is, April is Financial Literacy Month. And I don't know, Joanna Jane, you let me know how you feel, but I think part of financial literacy is tied to mindfulness. It is tied to, being aware of your traumas, your triggers, your relationship with money. But Joanna Jane, bringing you in. Thank you so much for your patience. We had callers, quite a few callers today, a lot of rich conversation going on, and thankful for that and for your patience. So how are you, love? Happy Monday. Oh, did we got her? Is she home? Did we lose her?
Oh, happy Monday, everybody. I'm here.
There you go.
Yes, happy Monday. I am doing well. As you know, I'm on the road and making it happen with this neighborhood development that, comes with its highs and lows on certain days, but we are pushing through. Hello?
Sarita, you're on mute. There we go.
Oh, I was about to say, I know I ain't pressed that button. They better not be trying to take me out like this technology. But no, so Joanna Jane, we were just talking quite a bit just around like mental health, wellness, trauma triggers, all of this kind of stuff, which I think folks may not necessarily always tie to money, tied to our relationship with money, and especially like financial literacy. I know we don't have a lot of time, but if there's anything that you would want to speak to in terms of the intersection of mental health wellness or of emotional wellness and money, understanding that relationship with money or navigating it, what if anything would that be?
Very valid point. In all that was stated, I was listening in on the information that was shared for the last 30-ish minutes. And there is definitely an intersection there, because how we view ourselves, how we see ourselves as worthy or not, plays a factor in how we go about our finances. And we have just talked about a number of systems that has jaded our views of who we are. And what we have to do is, one, acknowledge it. We can't act like these things don't affect us, because they do. Once we realize and we have the knowledge, not just recognizing it emotionally, but looking at the information, right? Doing the study, doing the research, and saying, okay, from this century to this point, we were affected in this way, which is why I like how material things feel. But if I know that I am called for greater, if I know that I need to break this curse, then I need to do X, Y, Z in my finances. And I know the way that I just said that sounds so simple, but it does require some internal work. You may have to go and seek some counseling, which is nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. When you may be the first one in your family to graduate from college, or you might be that first six-figure earner, the way that you go about your life may start to look very different than what your family and those and what the previous generation is accustomed to. So then we get these type of terms or associations thrown at us that we're too bougie, we think we're too good, which then only brings us down mentally to say, well, maybe I should be still at the bottom of the crab barrel. But reality is, this is where you were supposed to be anyway. Had these other systems not affected your mind, had these other systems not affected our culture. So we have to acknowledge that these things have happened and how they have affected our community and how they have played a part on our educational system and our emotions. When we acknowledge it and we own it, say, yep, that's what happened, but we're not going to stay there. Now that we know it, what can we do? Do we need to learn more of the tax laws, right? Because these systems exist. Do we need to learn more about money management? Because strategies exist. What do we need to do as a family so we can now combat against what we went through? We're still going through some things, but what can we do as a family to combat against it? Because as we start to do that, what we're experiencing today, Sarita, will become less and less and less over time.
Over
you,
time.
I, and Kayla may not even be alive to see it. But it can happen if we just start doing a little bit today.
Yeah.
Just imagine if other people said, I'm going to buy a neighborhood too, as crazy as this woman was. What would that look like for policing in our community when we own the majority of it? What would that look like if, I don't know, somebody else decided to buy a whole town? There's a young lady that formed a coalition, and I think it's like 99 acres or something like that. I'm not sure exactly where she's from, but they created their own town. What would that look like if more of us did that? Would we have the same police issues that we have? Not saying it would be perfect, but it may not be the same.
It's just thinking about those possibilities, not limiting our possibilities. And I was just about to say, when you were sharing a bit about, you know, how things can shift and change over time, and that, you know, myself, you, Kayla J, might not even be here to see that, but that it's possible. I think that in itself is, it requires a mental shift, right? Like, you have to be able to believe that something can even be possible. And that, like, don't underestimate the power of the thoughts that you allow to replay or to, you know, influence your understanding or perception of something, of whether or not something is possible, right? If you believe that we're in a system and so it's always going to be the way it's always been, well, I can tell you that's the lens that you're always going to see things through, right? But I think even where we're at, where we find ourselves at today, required foresight and a level of faith and belief in those who came before us and laid the groundwork, laid the foundation for us to continue to see some level of progress in any one of these industries or systems, et cetera. And so it really does, like, start in your mind. If when you heard Joanna Jane say, you know, what does it look like, not just to, you know, buy a block, but the community to start, you know, a town, and you were like, oh, that's ridiculous. You just shut it down in your mind. You shut down the possibility, right? And so when you shut down a possibility, what else do you shut down with it?
Yeah.
What else what just died? What just got killed because in your mind it wasn't possible? Because in your mind it couldn't be done. But the possibility still exists in the world. So I think it's how many of us are attaching ourselves to the possible.
Yeah. And so
how many of us, especially with our finances. But yeah, go ahead, Joanne.
Yeah. One of the things that I would, because I like to always give folks a tip. I only have one tip with this conversation that we're having right now. Be willing to get with like-minded people and dream something crazy. Be willing to get in a room with like-minded people and be willing to dream something crazy. It should make you feel like you want to vomit. I know that sounds so nasty, but really, like, get in a room with people in this month of financial literacy awareness and dream something that makes you feel like it's no way that these folks that are a group of women, it's no way that these folks that are a group of black men, it's no way, any of those things that line up with that, dream big like that. Create a mission around that. And then I challenge you to go and put together a proposal. It doesn't have to be super fancy. Put together something, a one-pager, a two-pager, and start knocking on some corporate doors. Start knocking on some of these doors of the folks that can write you a check and say, are you willing to be crazy enough with me? You don't know what can happen, y'all.
Yeah, that's real. That's real. As Miss Clara said, bring it. I'll take what Miss Clara said and bring it into this conversation. Bring your joy to your finances. Bring your joy to the possibilities of what you can do through your finances, and especially what we can do for our community, right, as a collective for generational wealth building, right, for increased prosperity in that way. Joanna Jane, I know we got to get ready to get out of here, but listen, any plugs we need to make sure the folks know about, so that they can take this week to engage, to get tapped in to all the good things that you have going on.
So I would tell folks that you want to make sure that you're following me on all social media platforms, at The Real Joanna Jane on Instagram, Joanna Jane on Facebook. Make sure that you are subscribed to our email list, because we did a phenomenal free FREE workshop last night on lending options for your real estate project. People learned so much information. So look out for those free workshops that I'll be doing throughout the rest of the month. I'm probably going to get ready to do another one, so look out for that. Definitely want to make sure that you are going to beforeyoubuild.ebook.com, ladies and gentlemen. Grab a copy of that book. People are giving reviews. They love it. Easy, clean read, simple homework steps. We're actually getting ready to start preparing for volume 2, so that's coming out as well. So just follow your girl. Show me some love, some support. I need encouragement, too, because I was crazy enough to dream something for my people, for us to do something crazy for the next generation. So I appreciate you all. And, yeah, I look forward to being here next week, Monday.
You're on mute again, sis.
There I go. Okay, I gotta get off this touch screen. Anywho, there you have it. Some Money Monday motivation for us to kind of carry throughout this week, just to meditate on. Maybe it feels a bit much to take immediate action, or to get in that room, but just start to sit with it. Start to sit with, what does it look like for you to bring your joy to your finances? What does it look like for you to entertain the possibilities, right? And encouraging you to do that throughout this week, to entertain the possibilities of better, right? And what that could look like, right? How would that happen? How would we achieve better in whatever way or whatever industry or whatever area of your life that it is? I tell you one thing, you meditate on it long enough, eventually you're going to start tapping into some courage to start taking tangible steps to bring that thing to life, right? To birth that baby. All right. Anywho, we got to get ready to get out of here. That is a wrap. A special thank you to Joanna Jane for choosing to save space with us today. For all of you, our WURD fam, for choosing a safe space with us today and just talk, just check in and process different aspects of our community, of our lives, of humanity, right? Much love and appreciation to Kayla J for holding down the phone lines, the board, and everything in between. If you haven't already, follow WURD Radio across all social media platforms, over on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, Twitter as well. You can check me out on IG and Facebook at Sincerely Sarita, and Kayla J at KALAJ_music nerd. Keep your dials locked to 96.1 FM, 900 AM. Up next is Keeping It Real with the Reverend Al Sharpton. We're right back here tomorrow, same time, same place, for another edition of Safe Space. But until then, I am Sincerely Sarita, reminding you, gently reminding you, to taste your words before you feed them to someone else. And always, 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 y'all, empathize, empower, and evolve. Peace.
On nights like this, I ride. Turn the music up to keep from crying. Wait till the sunshine.